Trump 2024 rival Christie's plan to pump up his standing with GOP primary voters. Christie charges, none of the other candidates is taking the fight to Donald Trump in 2024 GOP nomination. Manchester, New Hampshire Republican presidential candidate Christie says he's inching up in the latest GOP nomination polls because of his very vocal criticism of former President Donald Trump. But those same surveys also indicate that Christie's favorable ratings are well underwater among likely Republican primary voters, with respondents in one poll saying the former two-term New Jersey governor is the GOP candidate they're least likely to support. Christie, who 2 weeks ago launched his second White House bid, said in a Fox News digital interview in New Hampshire on Thursday that his game plan for pumping up his favorable ratings is to come up here and you campaign. "Remember this," Christie said. 8 years ago when I came up here, my unfavorables were upside down 25 points in the first poll. And on primary night, my favorables were up plus 30, so a 55-point swing. You know, look, people get to know me, I usually do pretty well." Christie placed all his chips in New Hampshire as he ran for the 2016 Republican nomination. But his campaign crashed and burned after a disappointing and distant sixth-place finish in New Hampshire, far behind Trump, who crushed the competition in the primary on his way to secure the GOP nomination and eventually the White House. Christie became the first among the other GOP 2016 contenders to endorse Trump, and for years he was a top outside advisor to the then president, even chairing Trump's high-profile commission on opioids. However, the two had a falling out after Trump's unsuccessful attempts to overturn his 2020 election loss to now President Joe Biden. For the past 2 years, Christie has become one of the most vocal Trump critics in the GOP. The former governor, who was making his first trip back to New Hampshire after launching his 2024 campaign in the state earlier this month, pointed to his vocal critiques of Trump and argued that, "I'm saying what's on a lot of people's minds, that none of the other candidates are saying. And it needs to be said. I am going to be the alternative to Donald Trump," Christie vowed. "I'm going to be the person that people look at and say he's the only one drawing a distinction between himself and Donald Trump. I am going to be the alternative to Donald Trump, and when I am, I'm going to beat him." Christie, who's concentrating his firepower in New Hampshire, reiterated that Trump will lead us to defeat again, and that's the case you have to make to voters across the spectrum. "By the way, I don't buy this Trump voter stuff. He doesn't own them. They voted for him, and they've said they're leading towards voting for him this time," he emphasized. "A lot of water to go over that dam between now and then, and we're going to make the case to every voter here in New Hampshire." Christie isn't the only Republican presidential candidate who's been vocal in their criticism of the former president, who enjoys a commanding lead in the GOP polls over his rivals as he makes his third straight run for the White House.